Only in the world of hi-fi products would I need to say this, but don't let the low price of the Ortofon MC X10 scare you away or make you think that this is an entry-level cartridge. It's not. Deep dive into the Ortofon MC X10, a brand new line of moving coil cartridges built on new tech that we will go over, and there are 4 new cartridges in this series, and the MC X10, although being the first or the entry-level model, in my usage has been anything but an entry-level experience. In 20 years of collecting pieces of vinyl, I've never used or even heard a moving coil cartridge. What are they? Why haven't I used them? And is the Ortofon MC X10 worthy of being the first one that I've ever tried? Now, before we go any further, Ortofon did send me this cartridge, and I get to keep it. However, these are my honest thoughts. I've been taking deep dives into all of their 2M and Concord Music Series moving magnet cartridges, and I highly recommend them, and I currently use them in my house, and I don't bother making videos about products that I would not recommend or use myself, and more importantly, that don't come from companies that have amazing customer service. And Ortofon has been a well-trusted maker of high-end phono cartridges for over 100 years, and the first Ortofon cartridges out there were moving coil cartridges, so they know what they're doing. Like I said, this is a brand new line, so I'm very excited, and I feel honored that Ortofon has even allowed me to share this with you. If you're interested in the MC X10 or others in the lineup based on this video, there will be links to get you right to purchasing one, and those are affiliate links through Amazon, so if you use those, it ends up helping out the channel a lot, and it doesn't cost you anything. But if you don't want to do that and you want to go direct to Ortofon without using affiliate links, I'm providing links down there as well, so just a convenience for you. So let's answer one of the first questions. What is a moving coil phono cartridge, and why do people, mostly people with very high-end hi-fi systems and turntables, prefer moving coil cartridges? A moving coil cartridge is a type of phono cartridge used in turntables to convert the physical vibrations of a stylus in a record groove into an electrical signal. Unlike moving magnet cartridges, moving coil cartridges have the coils of wire attached to the stylus assembly, which move within a magnetic field rather than the magnets moving within fixed coils. This design results in lower mass and potentially more accurate tracking of the record groove, but it also produces a lower output voltage, requiring a phono preamp with a dedicated moving coil input or step-up transformer or gain adjustments for your phono stage. This design of the coil attached directly to the stylus also means that you cannot replace the stylus. And also, these coils tend to make manufacturing of these cartridges much more expensive, which is why moving coil cartridges usually cost a lot more than moving magnet cartridges. The coils used in these cartridges are thinner than a human hair and are wound by hand under a microscope, essentially making moving coil cartridges handmade for the most part, which is what contributes to their higher cost. Now, moving magnets, on the other hand, can be manufactured in machine assemblies and can crank out mass amounts of them. They also require a lot less gain, and with being able to replace the stylus and still providing great sound quality, as we've seen with the 2M and the Concord Music lineup, moving magnet cartridges have become the norm, and most people will typically use them, especially for people just starting out with vinyl, or even in my case, people who have been collecting for years but never really knew about moving coil or could afford moving coil cartridges. But that has now changed. Ortofon has now released a game-changing line of moving coil cartridges, and I've been able to test them out, and specifically we're looking at the MC X10, which is their most affordable moving coil cartridge, and from what I'm seeing, one of the most affordable moving coil cartridges on the market today. At least if you go to places that sell high-end cartridges and you look by prices, I think that I've seen one out there that might be a little bit cheaper, but this is the cheapest that Ortofon now offers. The MCX series goes in parallel with the 2M moving magnet cartridges, where they have a red, blue, bronze, and black. This series has a 10, 20, 30, and 40. And the body type and internals of all of the MCX series are the same. The only thing that changes is the actual stylus type. And in this case, the MC X10, this is an elliptical stylus, similar to what is found on the 2M Red. Now, with that being said, you might think that this is an entry-level cartridge, and from the price and where it slots in the series, okay. But when you hear this cartridge, this is anything but an entry-level experience. You might also think, like I did incorrectly, that since this is the same stylus type as the 2M Red, that this is basically a comparable experience there. And I can also say that is far from the case. This new MCX series is also meant to eventually replace the Quintet series, so you might see some similar price points there. The Quintet series is 10 years old at this point, and I believe Ortofon is moving in the direction of the new MCX lineup. Setup for this was very easy and similar to what you would expect. Ortofon did send this to me pre-mounted on their head shell, but you can use any standard bayonet head shell for these. I don't believe that Ortofon is selling these in a pre-mounted configuration. I think you do have to buy a head shell separately. Adjusting the alignment and the vertical tracking is very easy. These are all a little larger in height versus the 2M series and the Conquer Music, but they still list a VTA of 20 degrees, so this was an easy setup to dial in on my ATLP7 turntable. I'm going to list off some technical specifications here. Now, I'm no expert in this field. Obviously, I have never really used a moving coil cartridge before, but this is why I love making these videos, because I'm just a guy trying out stuff on my own equipment in my house with my own pieces of vinyl and giving you what I hear. But there is a lot that goes into these cartridges, and I'm putting all the specs on the screen. Now, starting with the core, these are made with a honeycomb structured stainless steel frame, and along with the housing, makes them look very similar to the 2M lineup in their shape. The coils are made of pure silver, and there's a newly developed magnet system that is a one-piece pole cylinder integrated into a rear magnet yoke. And they have in-house produced and developed rubber compounds to handle the mechanical damping system. All of this combines for an amazing listening experience, at least according to Ortofon, but I can say in my experience, it sounds pretty amazing. As we mentioned before, the moving coil cartridges have a much lower signal output, so you need to boost that signal much more than you normally would with even a dedicated phono stage. Now, a lot of phono stages out there today have moving magnet or moving coil switch or an MM or MC switch, and this basically gives you the added gain that you need, but in some of these phono stages, this is a one-time all or nothing option. So depending on your moving coil cartridge, you might need to try different phono stages or find yourself boosting the volume, which could introduce other issues. Also, because some cheaper phono stages can introduce noise, and since you're boosting the gain to meet the level of these cartridges, you can really start to hear a lot of the limitations of certain phono stages, as well as not really unlocking the potential of your moving coil cartridge. Ortofon and others do make devices called step-up transformers, which are basically gain boosts for phono stages that don't offer moving coil options. People tend to add these to their setups to keep the signature of their phono stage, but wanting to use a moving coil cartridge. Like I'm pretty sure in the case of Macintosh preamps, they don't have moving coil options, or at least some of them don't. I think I've heard this somewhere. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments that I'm wrong about that. Also, subscribe to the channel while you're there. It's also very helpful for me. Personally, I'm using the Phono 3, which is probably the most affordable and lowest cost phono stage that still provides a great noise floor and multiple options of gain, as well as load settings. I tested the MC X10 initially with the MC very low setting on the Phono 3, and it was a significant boost in sound and overall quality. It sounded amazing. However, I did have to turn the volume of my preamp down a lot. Now, what this does is basically give me more of a sound direct from the cartridge and allows me to get more of its sound signature versus the sound of the line level equipment. However, I found this to be a little bit too hot. Even though it never distorted, I ended up going back down to the low setting instead of the very low setting, which is basically recommended for the voltage of this cartridge anyway. Since the Phono 3 also allows for load adjustments, I have mine set to 100 ohms, I believe it is. I have never really changed this, or at least I should say I tried different settings and I didn't really notice that much of a difference. And again, the recommended settings for this cartridge is the 100 ohms, so I just left it there. Another area where I notice a lot of difference is also at lower volumes. Again, probably because the gain is getting boosted for this moving coil cartridge, but it seems like I can lower the volume and still get a really full sound and really hear the opening up of that sound stage. Whereas I noticed before on some other cartridges, if I turn the volume down, I would sometimes tend to lose the fullness of the sound. Like I mentioned before, I went into this thinking that this would be a comparison or along the lines of the 2M Red, and the performance of this is anything but. And the 2M Red is a very good cartridge, but I started in the lineup with the 2M Blue, and then I moved on to the Bronze and the Black, and this has performed for me and my ears very similar to some of those, and in some ways better, and I'm sure that it's just the basics of moving from a moving magnet to a moving coil cartridge. In terms of compliance for tone arms, this does fit into pretty much compliance for almost all of the medium to lightweight tone arms that are out there on the market today. When you start to get into the super high-end, like $1,000, $5,000 tone arms, you're probably going to step up from this level of cartridge anyway, although you might get into the MC X40 at that point. And with that said too, this moving coil cartridge, the MC X10, would go very well with what people consider to be entry-level turntables like the Fluences or the Projects or even the Regas. I think personally we need to get away from the moniker of entry-level talk when we're talking about some of these turntables. Some of these turntables are over $500 and they're very, very good equipment. I mean, some of them could be the last turntable that you ever use in your lifetime, and using one of these moving coil cartridges with it would go very well with them. I've been listening to a ton of different music through this, as I always do: jazz, rock, reggae, funk, soul, folk music, hip hop, and I've not found any drawbacks. On heavy rock stuff, it never distorts. I personally like guitar heavy jazz stuff, and there's a beautiful tone from this cartridge and a lot of detail that comes out with like open cymbals and percussion stuff like that on jazz or on soul and funk music. And so I think this cartridge is very versatile for pretty much any type of music that you're looking to play through it. And also, like I mentioned in the beginning, don't let the low price of this scare you away. I mean, granted, $299 is not chump change, and God knows in the US prices change every day, it seems, and they never seem to go down. But here we are in 2025, and Ortofon comes along with something that should, for the way it performs, be a lot more expensive. It's just funny, in certain fields like cameras and in hi-fi equipment, people think that affordable means cheap, and it doesn't always have to be that way. The performance and the price of this alone are also another reason why I say that this is technically, like a big problem for Ortofon, because they're offering this when there's others in like the 2M lineup where this thing is now something that you should definitely consider over those. In terms of performance, you are getting way more performance for your value or for the money that you're spending. So I think that these things are priced very well, and I think that they're going to compete very well out there in terms of performance with other moving coil cartridges. Now, I've not had the chance to test every single phono stage out there, and I've not had the chance to test every single moving coil cartridge out there. If other manufacturers out there would like to send me stuff, please contact me, and I would be glad to review your products and give you my experience of how it sounds in my house on my equipment. But as of now, this is what I've been listening to, and I think it sounds amazing. Overall, I'm extremely happy with the performance of the Ortofon MC X10. I thought it would be a very big drop-off from the Concord Music LVB250, but I've been surprised at how well it actually performs with it, and I'm still shocked that by considering the price difference and the fact that that has a way, way higher grade stylus on it, this thing really does punch way above its weight in terms of price level, I would say, or even like the fact that it's the entry-level one in the lineup. If you're interested in moving coil cartridges, but you don't have a ton of cash to throw at something like that, and if you have a phono stage that can handle it, I would absolutely take a look at the MC X10 as a great way to get into the moving coil range and really start to go down the rabbit hole of hi-fi equipment and, possibly drain your bank account just that much faster. Sorry if I sent you down that road. If you like this video, you're probably going to like some others like these ones here on the channel about some other hi-fi equipment or some great records. I'm going to go listen to the Ortofon MC X10 and chill. I will see you on the next one.